Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Lady Sows. I've got a couple of jobs I want to do today. The first one is I need to pot on my giant onions. As you can see, they've grown quite a bit. I'm going to be potting mine into these 3-inch pots, which I think is 7 centimetres. I'm using the same seed compost that I've used before, which is 2 parts sieved multi-purpose compost together with 1 part fine vermiculite. The other thing I've done is I've sprinkled on some organic fertiliser. Never used this before, although I've used it with my garlic this year in the allotment. See what size garlic bulbs I get. It's granular, so I actually blitzed it in my little processor to make it a powder, and I've just sprinkled a few teaspoons into the whole mix. I've watered my onions, and these are busy soaking in water at the moment. It's rainwater that I've had in the house, so it's at room temperature. One of the things someone did say, made mention, because I said I was going to be planting in these cell trays, and someone did mention that he tried it last year and they dried out quite readily, and I have to agree with that. But so I probably wouldn't sow them in. If I was doing it again, I probably wouldn't use these cell trays. Some of the onions are doing really well, some aren't doing very well at all, some haven't really come up yet, and I've got a few that haven't germinated at all. So I suppose that's kind of normal. Whilst looking at these, I normally, with these cell trays, I would just pop these out, and but because the plants are small, they just don't have enough root around the ball to actually do that. So I'm going to have to sort of scoop them out. Some of them have now started to develop second leaves. This one, for example. There's 2 in here. As you can see, they've not, I get close to the camera, they've not they've produced roots, but they've not wound themselves round like they would normally do. So I'm actually going to put both these in, because these are actually both quite good onions. So if I'll do it on here, separate them slightly, pop them in. So they've got quite a decent root system on them. And then I've made a bigger hole there for that, so I'm not disturbing the roots too much. And that's quite a good one there. Let's get my other little scoopy thing out. The reason I used the onion fertiliser was because these are probably going to be in here more than 6 weeks, and multi-purpose compost generally has enough nutrients for about 6 weeks. I probably won't be potting these on until they've actually got quite a decent root system. I'll pot them on into the next size pot, but for now I just felt, otherwise I've got to remember to feed them. I know some people will do that, will feed them with something like organic seaweed fertiliser, which I still might do, because I'm determined to actually grow a big onion, even though I haven't a flipping clue what I'm doing here. But I am really determined that I'm going to have at least 1 big onion, even if it doesn't reach the 10-pound mark, which of course is the what we're aiming for with this. I've got so I'm actually selecting the onions that have started to produce a second leaf, on the grounds that they must be the best ones at the moment. I sowed these on the 15th of October. So it's been about, about 2 weeks, I suppose, since I sowed them. I've got 3 more to find. I probably will plant up some of the others, but I don't know when yet. I'll do that off camera. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put these on a gravel tray with gravel in it, mainly because I'm going away for a couple of days, and I don't particularly want to risk leaving my husband in charge of looking after them. That's not actually a very good one. Let's find a bigger one. I have got more than one in some of these cells because I did multi-sow them, which is the way I would normally sow my ordinary onions. But it was so that I could get the most number of onions. That's a good one there. Right. So they're my onions all planted up. And I may do some more because I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in here. 10 in here. I only need 1, so I may pot up another 10 and see if I can. I'm quite happy to have 2 trays of 10, which give me 20 onions to work from. I'll make a note of when I've potted these on, and we'll come back in due course to see how they're doing. Now, the other job I want to do, I need to sow some more broad beans. I sowed these on the 5th of October, and I've had them just sitting in my greenhouse. Some of them are actually ready to plant out now, but I've had really poor germination. This is a 40 cell tray. I wanted 40 plants, and I've got 15 that aren't showing any signs of germination at all. I've looked underneath to see what roots I've got coming. You can see I can see roots. But there's 15 that are showing absolutely no sign of growing at all. So I usually save my own seed from broad beans. I probably have somewhere, but I just come. But I think I have run out. I find that if you do save your own seed, you will get much, much better germination rates. I'm growing a variety called Aquadulce, which is a winter variety. I did have a friend yesterday who actually asked me the question, I grew broad beans in the summer, can I use those? The answer is probably no. Aquadulce is a really winter hardy variety of broad beans. Varieties such as Bunyard's Exhibition, Giant Exhibition, or one of the red-skinned varieties of broad beans are generally classed as summer varieties. These ones will be ready to harvest from June onwards, where the summer varieties aren't ready to harvest until July, August. So they're not as winter hardy. These are brilliant as long as they're not too tall. These are probably about the right size to be putting in the ground now. Last year, or should I say this year, I didn't sow them until January because I happened to be away all of the winter. And we'd had a very mild autumn, and I knew that if I sowed them too early, they were going to be too big going into the ground. And the problem is, if they are too tall, they won't survive the winter. So I did them in January. I planted them out probably the beginning of March under fleece, and my broad beans were later. One of the reasons I like sowing them or having them as an early variety is because I can plant something else after them. And generally I follow broad beans with swede. There's hardly any nitrogen nodules left because the beans have used all of that up with their flowering and pod production. But there's a little bit, and I always plant my swede after the broad beans. This year, they were later, so I couldn't do it. And so the swedes have been a bit of a disaster this year. But I also put that down to where they were in the allotment. So the summer ones you would normally sow around April, May time. and you'll harvest them around July, August. And these ones, any time from October, really, depends on your climate or whereabouts you are in the country. We have been having some quite mild autumns over the last few years, so I have found that I'm sowing them later and later, and still getting quite good success with them. So I need to sow 15, so which means I'm going to sow 20, because I can't guarantee they're all going to come up. I am going to germinate these actually in the house, mainly because it's quite cold in the greenhouse now. Now the clocks have changed. My garden is north facing at the back where my greenhouse is, and it really doesn't get much sun, if any, during the winter months. It's still getting a little at the moment till about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning when it does come out, but by the beginning of December it gets no sun on it until right through till March. That has advantages in the summer because I don't have to shade it in the summer months, but in the winter it does mean can't really grow anything. So once they've germinated, which as I say I'll do in the house, I will just pop them out. I'll pop them out into the greenhouse and let them grow on a little bit before I then plant them out. And I will be planting these out under fleece, just to give them, it's very windy at my allotment, and just to really, more than anything else, to give them some protection from the winter winds. Now I've sieved this compost. I don't know if other people have noticed this, but I mean, I've been growing vegetables a long, long time, and sort of some older people would know that compost used to be a lot nicer than it is now. We didn't used to have to sieve our compost at all in years gone by, but it just seems to be so full of woody bits and lumpy bits and all the rest of it. So I do find, so I'm firming these down. I do find now that I for seed sowing, I do, even for big seeds, which broad bean seeds are, I actually sieve the compost. So what did I do with my little dibber thingy? Goodness only knows. Oh, there it is. These have got nice big holes at the bottom, so I can poke the compost out that I don't want. So broad beans are quite a big seed. They actually do keep quite well for the most part. So they're quite a big seed. And I usually plant them, just make a hole, poke them in. And I usually do them on their ends and the bit at the bottom, mainly because that's where the roots are going to come out. And I feel that gives them a fighting chance to actually grow the right way round. These probably will take, I don't know, because they're in the house, they'll probably take about a week to 10 days, I would have thought, to come up. And as I say, as soon as they're up, I will pop them into the greenhouse. And the reason for that, or you could pop them into a cold frame. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be planting them out in what will be quite cold soil, probably in December, or probably the beginning of December. The soil has cooled down quite a lot now. It's not too much of a shock to them because they've actually been sitting in cold soil anyway in the greenhouse. They will grow on a little bit. They'll grow on slowly, and I'll just plant them out whenever I feel that they're large enough to actually go in the ground. Because you can plant them out in December as long as the ground isn't frozen and you're not under 2 foot of snow. Now that's something we do get here, is snow. This part of South Yorkshire in the winter. There's lots of people talking about maybe we're going to have a hard winter this year. Who knows? We certainly haven't had a really hard winter for quite a long time, but we always get snow. I've lived up here for 20 years and I don't know a winter where we haven't had snow. So I'll give them a drink and I will label them, because I've left the labels in the garage where I keep all my stuff. And I will let you know how I get on with these, and I will be planting these other ones out. Some of them are quite small still, so it'll only be some that I'll be planting out. But I think what I was saying earlier about the small pods, you see, you get quite a good root system in these, and you can just pop them out, and you just make a hole and pop them in the ground. And the other thing about broad beans, I'm going to plant these out 9 inches apart each way. They grow quite tall. They will need staking because they become quite top heavy with the seed pods as they grow. Now 9 inches might seem quite a lot for such a little plant, but each one of these can grow up to 5 branches in the spring. They won't do a lot over winter, but in the spring, once the weather starts to warm up, they will really take off and they become quite heavy. The other thing I've always noticed about broad beans is that you get flowers to start with and you think, well, I haven't got any beans. The thing about them is that I think in the early stages, often the plants are quite small when they first start to flower, but you do find that as the plants get bigger, the pods will set. The other thing about broad beans is they don't need insects to pollinate. They are self-pollinating. However, broad beans do cross-pollinate. At the allotment, generally, if I want to grow beans for seed, I'll grow them at home because nobody else is growing them. But the thing with Aquadulce is that anybody who's growing broad beans at this time of the year will be growing that variety. So the chances of cross-pollination is slim. So you can then save the seeds from it for growing for next year. However, if you're growing summer varieties, excuse me, sir. If you're growing summer varieties and people are all growing different varieties, then they will cross-pollinate. So you can't be sure if you save the seeds that they're going to come true to the ones that you actually grew. Whilst they don't need insects or bees to pollinate, you will find bees on them because they will take the nectar. And if they do pollinate them, then you get a much better crop. But as I say, generally they don't. Generally, they don't need insects to set seed. So I'm now going to give these a water, and I will label them, put them, probably leave them in here to germinate. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who subscribed. I've been pleasantly surprised, I have to say. And thank you very much for watching, and hope to catch you another time. Bye-bye for now.